Hi, Phil.
Hi, Alex.
Hi. So I'm here with Phil, who has very kindly agreed to talk us through the kind of latest iteration of his live system. And this is obviously something that's had like tons and tons of kind of variations and sort of iterations.
Yep.
We've obviously got a big podcast where we're talking about this system in a bit more length, but I just wanted to kind of get you to show me it. And there's, I'm going to sort of just quickly give you my impression of what I understand it is and then hand over, because it's, as what I understand is that you've gone through various iterations of having more of improvisational focus, but then this latest version you basically have gotten a more structured approach, which I think is really interesting. There's like, I'm trying to build a more of an improvisational thing, but the structured thing, in a way, I almost think is like harder, because you've got to literally design like an hour's worth of music, you know, this sort of beautiful flow, which I think, and listening to that Yuma Brighton set, I think it's just great. It's really, it's like a brilliant flowing hour. And you're doing it with just this system. And I say just because I think it's really small, and I'm impressed that you've managed to squeeze it into such a small space. So please tell us how it works. What do you do? How do you create an hour of music on this? And with a particular, I mean, I guess that will be natural, but I'm particularly curious about those 101s.
Sure.
Because they look so crazy.
Okay, so I'll give a run through of the architecture of the system, and then maybe more into like the music aspect. So over in the top corner is my master clock, Pamela's new workout. That is clocking two ER1/102 sequences by orthogonal devices. So the top one is controlling all of the drums. So we've got kick voice here.
And that's the tip top, the one.
Yeah, tip top, the one.
Is that your sample as well? Have you got?
There's some samples that I've made.
Nice, yeah, that's good.
I'll go through each of the voices in a moment. So we've got the kick, got the hats, we've got the snare, we've got the chimera. So they're all four of those are being controlled by the four tracks on the top 101. On the bottom 101, we are controlling the Bacillus iteratus alter as the bass duties. Track 2 is the Laquelic iteratus Persido.
Is it a voice? Or?
Yeah, it is a voice, yeah. I mean, I'm also sending it through a WASP filter and a VCA as well.
Is that just to tame it somewhat?
Yeah, and also because I try and create really quite complex, harmonically complex sounds in there, and then I can still use a filter for subtractive synthesis. So it works quite well.
Best of both worlds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last two tracks from the 101 are controlling the two stereo tracks in this sound computer. So we've got, in this case, we've got channels 1 and 2 is stereo, and then 3 and 4 even, for this. So
just summarise what the sound computer is for those who don't know.
So a sound computer is essentially like a modular environment. So it's to get an idea. So here, these are just units. So these are just like mini modules.
In case you can't see this, so it's like literally like ladder filter, sample and hold, tap tempo, fold, wave folding, VCA modes, ADSR modes, pink noise.
Yeah. There's even a convolutional
convolution reverb.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
But that was put in there at the want of the users, and it's heavy, super heavy on the CPU.
Oh, so you've got like DSP on the thing.
Yes, but he put it in there anyway. Quantizers. Anyway, there's a whole raft of things.
So you can basically, it's like a modular environment. You can actually effectively design almost anything.
Correct.
So I know you've got like granular kind of synthesis in there that you've used during the set, but you've also got delays you've designed on the other ER1.
Yeah, down here, yeah. So there's clock delays. You can obviously EQ what goes into the delay. You can sidechain you can whatever you can think of with these hardware modules.
Fine-tune it.
You can sort of do with this, but
and this bottom case is kind of more effects. Yeah, basically.
Apart from this, which is the processing of the percussion. Essentially, this is the send effect. So I've got a ZDSP running Halls of Valhalla, and I've got another sound computer doing the processing of the audio prior to going into the reverb, and a clock delay as well. And then right on the end here are just some manual offsets to control parameters inside the computer.
And you were saying before you've designed your own. You were sort of feeling a bit aggrieved that was no like really great or no like kind of delay that was exactly what you wanted.
Yeah.
And the sound computer lets you basically make the exact delay you want.
It's completely clean.
Yeah.
So then if you want to manipulate it, maybe you want to put some filtering in or maybe some pitch, you can basically build a pitch shifting delay, stuff like that.
It's awesome.
So yeah, it's really cool. So and then and also I'm side chaining the reverb. So yeah, I've got the Pamela's workout into the two sequences. The sequences are then controlling all the voices. And
I think just to quickly say as well, the amazing thing is how few voices you have in that sense. Like you've got the one and the snare and the hats and a chimera for percussion.
Yeah.
You've got a sound computer for textures, and then you've got a Basiliscus Iteratus Alter and Liquelitic Iteratus Persido.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
That's it.
Those are the sound making things.
Yeah. And interestingly, so one of the things to note is that there's a huge amount of digital modules here, not a wealth of analog, except, for instance, the Liquelic's going through the WASP filter, so that works really nicely. The kick, which is a digital sample, is then being processed through this EQ channel strip. And the same, these are, actually the hats, aren't they a sample in 909?
Well, the hats, yes, I believe they are. Yes.
Anyway,
yeah.
But they're all getting processed again in its channel strip. So there's a lot of digital starting points, but then they go through analog processing.
Yeah.
So, and then all of that goes into the Model 1
so this
mixer.
Hang on, I'll shift us down.
Okay. So we've got 6 channels on the Model 1. They're all stereo, which I like. We've got 2 sends, which is going reverb and clock delay. And then you've got things like the master filter. You've also got a final master EQ. So you can do a hell of a lot.
Yeah. You're creating basically. I remember you saying you're creating the mix for side chaining on here with
on the
this
cues.
QB.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's having. I think the key is having high pass on every channel is so nice for just keeping things clean and not muddy.
So that's how the system is set up. Now, in terms of, let's say, modulation. So actually I've got 2 Pamela's workouts. So although this is now the clock, the master clock for these 2 guys, they're also sending lots of LFOs throughout the system, both here and in here. The LFOs, they're either going via attenuators on the tiles, or they're going via these switches that I've made. So probably just for ease, these aren't connected, but they're all the same design. So essentially, it's a stereo jack with a stereo jack in here, and then the tip is like an input signal, which is this one. So that would go into I don't know. Let's just
the output. Of
let's
the
just
camera.
let's pick sine wave so you can see. Okay, so now you can see this is actually engaged. So now what I'm doing is
shows you what it's doing.
Yeah, and then this can then be patched to wherever I want to modulate. I don't know, whatever. Let's say in here. So this allows me to set up LFOs. So I've got in total 5 of these different switches, and then I can just.
So you're literally just muting the on and off. Yeah. It's really
so then I just want to bring something in.
It's kind of such a dumb application, but it's so critical to just be able to turn things like that on and off.
Yeah.
In an instant.
So,
I love the visual communication as well, that you can really see what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not electronics expert, so the downside of the way I've done it is because it's passive. The LED draw, it basically reduces the amplitude of the LFOs.
I was very impressed. I thought you'd done it with like active electronics.
No. The only active electronics is this one here. Matthew at ALM helped me with the design on this. This is just sending 5 volts out of each of these outputs, and that's just to control the transforms. It turns
transform functions.
On and off. Yeah. So that is active. That was about the level of my
right. Okay.
Electrical
with
engineering.
Matthew's help.
Yeah, a lot of his help. So I've got lots of modulation things going on,
And you're basically using these to momentarily kind of change what's going on.
Yeah, so
because there is a flow. There's obviously like a sort of a flow of the whole thing.
Yeah, so I mean, for instance, let's just switch those off. So I've just brought up the Bassimilus Satiritas. In actual fact, in this case, although not throughout the whole set, I'm pretty much using it as a sort of low frequency bass with hardly any attack, and then that goes in with the kick, and that just gives it sort of complements the kick at the low end.
You use it as this kind of low subby sort of
rhythm.
Like a really subtle rhythm.
Exactly, like a rolling. So if I bring in the percussion,
it's kind of almost doing the same role that delay would have if you put like a kind of triplet-y delay or something on a kick drum.
So if I just if I now take the Bassimilus out,
it's lifeless.
It definitely makes a difference. So anyway, that's something I've learned this year.
But you really do dedicate it to that purpose. It's like low rolling bass.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But what's quite nice is that sometimes then, I mean, in this particular snapshot, if I bring those things back in, I actually it acts as a second kick.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's like it can be quiet, and if I.
How's the pattern for it being derived?
So the pattern has been derived in here. So if I go to 1, you'll be able to see it ticking through now. So you've got different duration lengths, which creates the rhythm, and then these are just the gates. And then, for instance, in here you can actually do ratcheting as well.
Right.
So it's pretty cool.
So I suppose we should talk about the ER. I'll go on if you're going to.
Oh, so I was going to just demonstrate. So then, if I wanted to modulate. I'm just changing the harmonic there.
Nice.
And it's just an extra thing. I'm not going to use it all the time. I'm just going to add a little bit of spice.
But the key is that you can quickly turn it on and off.
Yeah.
Like bang, and now it's being modulated.
Yeah.
And
it's the same with things like with the.
These are these are like Well, they're not. Are they momentary? Like the little push switches that you've got?
No, all they're doing is you've got 5 volts that's always been sent to the switch, and now I'm just passing it through.
And I was thinking that the little pads.
Oh, these little pads, yeah. So I'm sending only the gate, and these go into the ER102 modifier inputs, and because of the way I've set this up, it's all quantized.
So whenever you hold it down, you get some hat.
Yes.
Because you've sent a positive gate to
Correct.
the 102.
So what I can do, and what I've got here, which I haven't actually sort of built into the set yet, is I've got clocks from Pamela, which will also going to be doing the same thing.
Oh, I see.
So I'm going to turn them on. I mean, I'll have them a lot slower than what you're seeing.
Yeah.
I've implemented it, But then you'll be able to, I could do exactly the same thing. So whenever that's on, it would add some extra hats. Type thing.
So you're using those for kind of momentary interest that you still, because you're using these 101 sequences to kind of create the rhythms and the melody, but you're using the little touch plates and the switches to just add momentary interest. So you've still got the ability to kind of reach into what the 101's doing.
Exactly.
And modify it and build something up and break.
Yeah, completely right. Yeah.
So I think we need to talk about the 101s then, basically. I mean, You've sold me on these before, at length, but perhaps in a more concise fashion, is kind of like, what's it doing for you? Why did you choose it? And why can only it do what you're doing?
I think the biggest benefit or the biggest selling point for this sequencer are 2 things. One, that it has 2 CV outputs, which
per channel.
There's
4.
So there's 4. So you get in total 8 CV outs, and you get 4 gates out.
So you're not just doing pitch; you're also doing a modulation lane.
Yeah. So for instance, in this, that sounds a bit jangly, but if I go in here, you can see this modulation with my finger is varying. So like. You see where it goes to 83? It's actually quite pronounced sound.
I hear it like little bang.
So there, because I've got the two CV outs, I've got one that's doing pitch, I've got the other one that's changing the amplitude of the envelope going into the filter, and that just creates, certainly if you then add some reverb, when you get that extra high frequencies, just like rings out ever so slightly longer, and it creates what otherwise would be a 7-step
super flat. I mean, you could pull out the channel that's doing it.
Well, actually, I could just pull that. Yeah, you're right. Let's.
Or whatever the output from the 101 is.
It'd be something like that. It's not quite right because it's still getting some variation, but it's more like that.
Yeah. So it's like for when the melodies are playing, it's not just
actually. This is what it would be like because it's going through a VCA as well.
So kind of you've baked in like interest.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's much better.
And what you could, and of course, because of the transforms, you can then add randomness. You can add extra randomness. So I could be also saying, well, I've got like you could call it a contour. It's like a contour of how much the filter is open. And that's a defined number by me. But then I could add random numbers on top of those, or I could add a random number plus or minus. So I could be going around that contour. So again, you can.
So, just to be clear, you basically. It seems like the thing with this sequencer is you can basically have the absolute most precisely defined sequences at exactly the right voltage with unique timing for every step and things. You can really fine-tune and design a sequence to a hugely complex end. Yeah. But then you've got layers of kind of mathematic like algorithms that you can kind of, you can either like destructively apply, so you can say I want the sequencer to just make loads of changes for me, put notes in, change that modulation, and then you're using that 102 add-ons to do that same mathematical thing, randomizing it, but to do it momentarily.
Yeah, exactly.
So that only when that switch is live, it will modify the sequence. So
you've absolutely got it.
So you've kind of got your sequences, but you can also, so you could destroy them and mangle them. Yeah. And you can also do that temporarily as a performance.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. And you've got it. You sold it back to me.
Sweet.
But I think what I did sort of fail to mention before is what's interesting about this, because you know if we just look, we've got these sort of arbitrary numbers that they're not obvious what they mean.
No.
So if I go into, I'll keep it in there. But what you can see is that this basically, the ER101 is like an index sequencer. So what it does is it's got 0 to 99. So it's got 0 to 99 rows in a table.
Right.
And those rows in a table relate to a voltage. Now, in this, on CVA, there's a certain mode that when you're dealing with pitch, it actually shows what the pitch is. So you can see you've got A sharp, A sharp, right? And you've got the one where it is in terms of like 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I now go to CVB, you can actually now see these are the actual voltages being sent out.
Right.
Now, the thing is, if we go into edit mode, you see as I scroll through this is changing the voltage, right? And it goes all the way to I think about 8 point something volts. In this one now I've got a different table, but those tables can be user defined.
Right.
So for instance,
scale basically.
It can be whatever you want it to be.
Right.
So let's say you've got a module that that's going to select samples, maybe the tip top one. And let's say, I'm not sure if it does or it doesn't, I'm just saying hypothetically, let's say it doesn't use semitone, like the volts per octave standard to select samples, but it's some other arbitrary thing, like, you know, it's got a range of 5 volts and you've got 20, so you like 5 divided by 20. Or maybe it's something weird. Maybe it's 5 divided by 21. So what you can do in here is you can say, I want, if I go all the way down to the index, you can say, I want, keep going. I want, for instance here, because I've made this table, I want 0 index to be 1 volt.
Right.
So it could be that I wanted 0 to be 0 volts and I would have 99 as 8 volts. But what I did, because I want to control the amplitude of the envelope, I always want some of the envelope to pass. Therefore, I have a value of 1 volt, which is opening the VCA by 1 volt.
Right. Yeah.
And then and then as you scroll up, I've now got all these points to there we go, to like 6 volts. So what's cool, but you don't have to. This is the cool thing about this sequencer, is the table is derived by you. You could have a table that goes up in steps. It could go 1 to 1 volt over 10 steps. Then you could go again. You could have like a staircase. Now, how you would want to use that is one thing, is another thing. But it means you can really, if you've got a weird module that doesn't really play very well with other signatures, you can go through and you can make a table that explicitly always gets you
specifically.
Yeah, and it's brilliant.
It would be otherwise very hard to send an extremely specific voltage. It's allowing you to create a table of voltages tailored to the application.
Exactly.
In a very precisely defined way.
So, I mean, that's one thing I sort of overlooked when I was trying to describe why I liked it, because it's so fundamental to it.
Presumably, it also makes it easy to have, like, I can imagine pitch scales is the obvious thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, in here...
does it have them built in and all that kind of stuff?
And you can also input your own...
tuning scales.
Exactly. So, for instance, if I get to the reference...
So effectively, what you do with this is you effectively set up your notes and assign your notes a number.
Correct.
And then you jump through the numbers to change it. Right,
exactly.
Okay. So it's not too...
Yeah, so I mean...
It just requires that setup. It just seems like it gives you such a precise control. I see it's got scales.
Yeah. So and I've made scales to be... to have root notes as well. So if So now I've just changed the scale. And now those indexes, they haven't changed, but they're indexing different voltages.
Nicely, yeah.
And actually...
Sounds quite good.
Yeah, so that's really the heart of this. And then I've got, obviously, 2 CVs and a gate going in to control the 2 channels in the 301. So, for instance, here's one I prepared earlier. Excuse the language.
Fuck drums.
Yeah. But... for instance, in here, so I've got, this is the sound that's playing, and in here, so I've got a little mixer, which I've encapsulated, and then inside this little mixer, I've encapsulated like the whole of this sound you're hearing right now. So I've got a sample. So this is the whole sample, and actually you can see I'm only using ever such a small part of it.
You're scrubbing through it like granularly.
Yeah, and then trying to think what else. Oh yeah, you can see here I've actually I'm modulating. Well, you can't see, but trust me, I'm modulating one from the ER101, the pitch of this sample.
Right.
And because one thing I didn't mention. There's the final part of the sales pitch, is that you can, if I go, so if I now, what's nice is you can actually see it scroll through, and there are certain dots on here, and what that means is that actually you can smooth as well.
Right.
So instead of it always being stepped, you can actually smooth between steps as well.
Yeah.
You can see there, whenever it goes on, it means it's essentially like slewing.
Oh yeah, here it's like
yeah, exactly,
it's like a smooth note.
So for instance, in this case, I've got a sample. It's been triggered, and the pitch is being modulated by the 101. What else have we got? I've got a fixed delay to create some spatial, to get it in a space as opposed to being flat, just by simply slightly delaying left and right.
Yeah.
Oops. Then I've got a pitch shifter. That's half wet. I've got some EQ, and I've got a side chaining, and so that's the whole thing. And then what I've also got is, I'm trying to think what this one does, but I've got a manual control here that does something, and I can't remember because it was a chain I made ages ago. But I now can also add in this variation of that sound.
Yeah.
So when you put it all together. It sounds a bit like that. So yeah, that's pretty much the system.
So how does it, talk me through just the idea of the structure? Maybe just show us the very beginning of the set, like what you were showing before, and show us your little card as well.
Okay,
Just talk through the way that the set is structured now, using all these elements together.
Okay, so I decided I wanted to have this evolving set that had this journey, and that it evolved. So this idea of constant change, but it's all seamless, and much like a DJ set, but not quite so obviously one tune to the next. It was something that was a bit more gradual. So I started off with a sound, which I'll load up in a minute, but basically in the 101 sequences, in the one that's driving all the melody and textures, my first thing is saved to snapshot G0 for whatever reason, and then they just go through incrementally.
I want to see your card.
And then
show the
yeah, sure. So tell me when.
So I've got a close-up of this that I'll show. But I think this is really nice as well, just that you've done this, because you've obviously had this made.
I just printed off a grid and then I just filled it in. But basically, we've got the 4 channels. So the one thing is that I completely choose whenever I'm playing is the drums are completely separated from the other stuff,
from the melodies.
Yeah. But essentially, it's just got the 4 channels that I'm most concerned with. And that when I've got musical ideas and when I haven't, sometimes I don't have anything, so I don't need to concern myself with it. And then sometimes I do, and I have to think, all right, what am I doing next? And it's just a small prompt.
It's like a running order, but like graphically represented.
Yeah, just because I don't want to have to. You don't want to have to read notes, do you? You just want to have a look at something and go, all right.
It's a good visual
It's
cue.
just like a coordinate system,
because it's obviously like number based.
Yeah, so I start on G0. I'm going to load that. I've also done something similar in terms of naming conventions for all my chains. So, for instance, I'm going to go to G0. I've got the first output 1 and 2. I'm going to load that up. What's neat about this actually, the thing's called quick saves, and you're able to save the entire state of the whole module. So what I do is I have a quick save where when I'm setting up for a gig, it says, do you want to save, you load your quick save? And you go, yes. So it does all this for me. So I just switch it on and go, yes. And I'm at 0, G, I'm at the beginning. So if I now just do a similar thing, if I go load it and then I go into here, deeper grain. So, I name stuff based on what the sound is. For instance, this is a sample I've repurposed from a track that I released earlier this year called Deeper. And it sounds nothing like this now because I've completely chewed it up. But this is the sound. And let's put that there. So this is how I would start the set, and I wanted something that was, interesting, bit moody to get things going. And then I've got a manual offset in here that's changing another variable, which I think it's how much it scrolls through the sample. This is in this case, it's a manual grains. It's a granular synthesizer. You don't get any visual feedback on that in terms of where it's going through the waveform.
It just does its own little thing.
Yeah, I think it will come at some point. But anyway, we have this, and then I would sort of start with the kick and just bring in the kick without any
fully high pass.
Yeah, and also taking off all the top as well.
Right, so it's really gone.
Yeah, and I might also bring in a bit of hi-hat, just maybe. Depends what I'm feeling like. Yeah. Just sort of introducing some of the elements, but slowly.
Well, this is where you're able to bring it in
without
pre-mixer,
correct,
to just the entirely wet signal of the hats. It's nice.
And then I would then probably bring in the Stimulus. Again, I'm going to take off all of the. Let's just put this back in the mode I want. Take off all the low end, and then just start to bring that rolling bass in. And obviously, I'm doing this with one hand, so it's not that. I'm not really using two hands to control the mixer, but you get the idea. And then I might even then I've got the low pass filter on the hi-hats and whatnot. So then I would start to bring in these. I've also got as a second, I've got that weird sort of low frequency texture, but I've also got another thing that's just called soundscape, just a little sample that I'm actually panning with an inbuilt sine wave in this. You can't really see it, but you can see it's moving back and forth. So it's moving.
Because panning for it, and these are all stereo channels.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's also actually, and now I've got another sound in here called chord stabs. And then obviously eventually.
It's good. All that textural stuff, I think, is what was so kind of striking when I listened through to the set. It's like, it really just makes it, and that's all sound computer, isn't it? It's so much like
it is a large part of it. Plus having a good reverb and delay. I mean, so I only ever use the room in the Halls of Valhalla for the stuff I'm doing at the moment because it's just too big. Anything else?
Yeah. You've got to be careful to not overload things. I think it's like that's something when I played, I realised I totally overcooked the reverb massively.
It's
easily done.
So, for instance, I was just talking about the processing. So in here, I've compressed the percussion, so that's it completely. Let's bring it open now. But I could also really drive it through this channel. Now, and then I'm sort of working through. So now I'm thinking I need something a bit more. So, and then I'll decide, sort of, introduce the idea, and then I've got a switch next to it. I'm going to switch.
And that's just doing it for you, yeah.
And then, talking before that, I probably wouldn't go straight into it always being on. So I've got a probability. So let's just sort of go back. And I've got this switch is adding probability into the steps, but you won't be able to hear it until I press this button. So you got a sort of skippiness. So I deliberately said where I want those gates.
That's the key as well. Yeah, the probability isn't in just any old place.
No, it's in.
You've deliberately.
Yeah. And then
creates like a little skipping rhythm.
Yeah. And and I can't remember what the percentage was. I think it's like 50%. And then I can decide. To have it open completely, but then the same idea about having the analog processing of the digital sample. So it's here. This is exaggerated. So, but I'm going to crossfade into a really Now during the course of a gig, I will normally just sort of. Ramp everything up, keep pushing stuff,
drive,
just trying. So, for instance, that distortion I've got on the hi-hats now, I wouldn't do that from the get-go. I'd take my time, but then I would hopefully more and more I'd be driving things, making things, a bit more crunchy and stuff like that. Just to so then, for instance, now we're going to go. Let's say we want to change. You put me on the spot here, but let's say. So let's go and hold. So I'm now going to go to load G2. And what's cool is I've loaded it, but it's not loaded into it yet because I haven't told it to. Right. I can tell it to, and I can quantize it when it happens.
Oh, sweet. I was going to wonder about that, whether it does a sound computer and does a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, this is not a great example because the next thing is pretty much the same. But anyway, the point being is I'm going to now commit, and now it does it in time. So there's no, it doesn't sort of jump to the next snapshot. It's under my control.
Yeah.
And then.
So what did that just change?
It didn't actually change anything melodically. It's right. I was going to bring something else in.
Okay, cool.
I think it's because. Can't remember actually, Alex. Sorry, I've chosen a bad example. But the point is, and then well, if I keep going, let's go to this one. So let me load this up. It's not changed. Whoops, because I haven't put it in yet. But if I now at this point, I will have filtered this out. I would have got rid of that sound. I don't need that anymore. And I'm now going to load up my next sound, or my next channel, which is. So I go into G3 Ultra Res. So again, I've repurposed some old material. Chewed it up beyond all recognition. And then, yeah, that's right. So let's turn that. And then that'll be the next thing. Will be this, assuming I did it right. Oh no, I've got to commit. So you say, so I've loaded it, but I need to commit it. And because you're watching me, so it doesn't really matter. That's it. But so we should now. That's okay. So now I can start bringing in the next thing. And again, sort of using ideas that are common in DJing. Not bringing everything in all at the same time.
So this is the idea of the slow, gradual change.
Yeah.
I think it's really well illustrated. You're using high pass and low pass filters to do that.
Yeah.
To slowly progress things in. So you don't just fade them up. You fade them up super high passed and then bring more of the low end in. It's perfect for dance because you're just letting people groove and getting into the elements that are there. And while slowly evolving it, like you're saying, like the kind of Daniel Avery set, it's like a slow evolution where it's not obvious when the changes are occurring.
Exactly.
But they're all kind of always there, they're always coming.
Of course, I'm sort of, I've got half an ear
in my
headphones and half on my monitors, so I can't really, I'm sort of half
It's
hearing.
more just to understand how, how the progressions are done in that way. Just slowly handing over to things, using the mixer's strengths, like high pass and low pass, to blend those changes.
So yeah,
it's great.
And then I'll just sort of play around and so I'm just trying to feel like, okay, this is going nice, and then what else can I bring into it? And so although it is sort of fixed in a sense what musical ideas there are, I've got so much to do, and what to choose from that. For instance, I go, okay, I could just roll out that kick. So now I've closed the reverb off almost completely. Yeah.
It's great. I need high pass filters on my mixer, I think. Nice DJ style ones. Maybe I just need to get a Model 1. Doesn't look cheap though. Doesn't look cheap. Good DJ mixers aren't ever cheap.
Yeah, I do. I think this is probably in a sense that obviously it's a lot about modular, but I wouldn't be able to do what I was doing without this mixer.
Without a good mixer.
And I did look at. I mean, it was really. Let's just. Now I'm just rolling off the bottom end of all the channels.
Wow. Yeah.
And then I can also. I'm changing. I'm turning down the amount that I'm sending to the reverb sidechain now. So I've switched it off. I've disengaged it. And then I can actually do quite a quick. So I'm going to switch off the filter. Maybe if you want to pan round. So I'm basically sending all the channels to the master filter. I've taken out all the low end, I've also simultaneously getting ready to engage the sidechaining source.
Yeah, that's how
and
you
I can
send
switch them
your
off.
sidechain.
I can switch this on and that one off simultaneously, so I can really just turn it up ever so much, just get a feel for it. I can really open up the reverb, and then when it's a suitable time, and I'm just got to get into the music. It will be. I can close the tone of the reverb. And you create that anticipation, and I can still close things down quite well too. So yeah. And again, just crossfading into this channel. So that's it dry.
Yeah, it's great. It's like it's interesting seeing the use of the DJ mixer. It really helps knit things together and actually like enact those like slow progressions, the sort of slow to really like knit. It helps. You've got to have like an external mixer of some kind. I mean, there's obviously modular mixers, but I think the DJ mixers especially are interesting because they've got high pass and low pass, on one knob built in as a default. It's does change things. It does make it easier to like blend elements.
I with the greatest will in the world, I couldn't use a Eurorack mixer.
Yeah.
It's too fiddly.
Yeah, those kinds of things do need just like it needs to just happen when I push that button.
Yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much how I put together my current live set. So yeah, on my YouTube channel, I occasionally do these little modular workouts. So that, and actually the most recent one is a variation on this set. It's not the same length. It's shorter than what I've played recently. And playlists of when I've played live on other people's events.
I would recommend listening to that. Is it Yuma? Was it?
Yuma.
YUMA.
Yeah, that's right.
It's on SoundCloud. Listen through the whole hour, which is what you were performing here. Is this system with this kind of the flow, the structure that you've created, the kind of hour of material, and it's brilliant. It's like it's a really good expression of modular because it's you've designed this system over many iterations to kind of perform and do exactly what you wanted to do. And it seems like the precision of like the 101s, the 301s are like 100% working for you. You really couldn't do this with another. You'd need maybe you could do it to an extent with like the circle on, but it's just the beauty of it all being modular and the fact that you can send it commands to alter the sequences.
Exactly.
That just seems like a good blend of pre-prepared and interactive.
Yeah, and I think having the experience with the circle on, and then because I had one of these before I had a circle on, and I liked it. I used it a couple of times on some tracks, but I didn't really think any more of it, and I got rid of it. Got the circle on, and then I started to think, hang on, I've had a similar experience. So to go back to it, and there's a guy, I'm gonna get his name wrong, so sorry, Phil. But Blue Wolf 7, I think it is. He's was a circle on user about the same time as I was, and then he was like, "What are you doing? You got rid of your circle on, or you're not using it?" Multiple point. You're using these 101s. I said, "Phil, you've got to get one." And he got one, and he was like, "Oh my God, Phil, this is like the closest thing to circle on in Eurorack." And I genuinely believe these are the best sequences in Eurorack because they are
bar none. Done. You've said it. Yeah. It's done. That's it.
The amount of flexibility you have in this, it doesn't dictate to you how long a step is. You make every single decision. You can have absolutely wonky as hell. You can have your master clock, but every single track can have its own multiplication and division. You could have 5 by 3 or 5 by 21.
Like betting odds.
Yeah.
But it's like, I see what you mean. Yeah, you can.
So that's what I mean by I think it's the best sequencer out there because it is so highly configurable. You can configure the durations of all the steps, the number of steps, and you can configure all the voltages that come out.
To the nth degree.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you wielded well, Phil.
Thanks, Alex.
Good stuff.
Cheers.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.